Hey guys, Marsing here bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so the other day we did have an update in the news to say that a new stage was being added to the GT Edition Extreme Z area, and that was of course the announcement that we are getting the Extreme Z Awakening for this free-to-play Giant Ape Vegeta. So this is a unit, funnily enough, that I actually had people mentioning to me over the last couple of months when we've been building teams for some events and things like that. I think a bunch of people had mentioned him in comments or on streams, forgetting that he didn't actually have his EZA on Global. It came out in July for JP. So I guess that means it came out during Tanabata, right? So it came out with the full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Obviously GT Heroes is one of his leader skills, but you know, with the releases of that Goku and the Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4 Vegito, the EZA for the physical Super Saiyan 4 Vegito, Giant Ape Power is a team that can always do with some extra buffs, and this Vegeta supposedly is quite good. So we're going to go over what he does, talk about his stage a little bit. His event that you can actually farm the card from is up at the moment, so this is the event. You'll be able to find this in the game right now. The Surpass Goku, the reinvention of Vegeta. So there are 5 stages. Stage 4 is where you farm the medals, farm the card, and then stages 1, 2, 3, and 5 all drop medals. He needs all of those medals. I think it's 7 of each one. And then there are, Giant Ape Power characters increase the drop rate. There are missions. If you've never done the event, right, you can get some guaranteed copies of the card as well as a couple of stones, and then yeah, you need 7 of each of the medals in order to awaken him into the UR. So even if you have already got this guy rainbowed, SA10, maybe even link leveled, make sure you do farm up a second copy to SA5 and get him awakened, so that once you've done the EZA, you can just feed him straight in. So when we look at what this guy does, he has a Giant Ape Power leader skill 3 key and 77%, and then int types 3 key 50%, pretty standard for an EZA'd free-to-play unit. And then his super attack, the Final Shine attack Extreme, raises attack and greatly raises defense for 1 turn. So it does supreme damage to the enemy and lowers attack. So SA multiplied by 30%, defense 50% for 1 turn. Just to be clear with the wording, right, it's raises attack, but there isn't like a comma or a separation. So the raising attack is only for 1 turn. It's not an infinite stack, but he does greatly raise defense for 1 turn, which is very good. And then his passive skill, attack and defense 120, an additional attack and defense 50% when performing a super attack, additional attack and defense 120 when there's another Giant Ape Power ally attacking in the same turn, which is great because those are the kind of units you're going to want to link him up with ideally anyway. Then he gets an additional 50% defense and high chance of performing a crit when facing a Shadow Dragon Saga enemy. Now, obviously for the most part, that's kind of pointless outside of the Sin fight for Global. We will eventually get Omega, probably in January. But those are really the only places in terms of difficult content that you're going to see that come into play. But it's a little bit of extra defense and crit chance, which is not, defense is always nice, but it's not like he's unrunnable when you're not fighting a Shadow Dragon Saga enemy, right? So that's pretty cool. And then you kind of get that far down his passive and nothing seems super exciting. Like the numbers are pretty good. But then once you get past this part, there is, as you can see here, a symbol to separate these, so it's not tied to a Shadow Dragon Saga enemy, but he guards all attacks when HP is 50% or more. So he has guard, which is very good. Now it is conditional, but it is 50% or more HP. At least it's not like, high chance to guard or something like that. So that could actually be very, very useful, especially with him greatly raising defense for 1 turn on super attack. So if you get an additional super with him, then obviously he greatly raises defense again, and then he has the guard, and then he turns into a Giant Ape when conditions are met. The transformation conditions are when HP is 50% or less, starting from the 4th turn from the start of battle. So it is HP restricted, probably a good one for these Giant Ape leads. And the active skill, someone like Orange Piccolo or something like that is always going to be slightly more useful, but definitely a decent restriction. It's not like one that's going to be super impossible to see. And then when he does transform into the Giant Ape, a lot of the giant ape forms are really not that great, even with, you know, the characters when they get their EZA. So the most important thing is that they essentially give them some kind of buff, right? To make it A little bit easier to super attack with them, and then B, you know, some sort of buff to their damage capability. So this guy does get greatly raised attack for 1 turn and does destructive damage. So his super attack is, you know, it's okay, but at the end of the day, the giant ape, you're attacking 3 times, but well, usually you get 2 turns, right? So it's 6 times bare minimum. Sometimes you get the 3rd turn, and then of course you can get additional attacks as well. He does have Key 3 and Attack 50% as his passive, so you are getting a little bit of extra attack from the passive, the greatly raising on super, but he does get the 3 Key, which is really good, because obviously the giant apes, the rotation where it's just the 3 giant ape attacks, you just have 6 Key, and you got to go from there. I say 6 Key, obviously if you're running him under a leader that gives more Key, it might be more, less Key, it might be less, but that does mean that he will be starting the turn on a normal 3 Key, like double lead. He'll be starting the turn on 9 Key, so you only need to get 3 in order to get the super attacks with the giant ape. So the giant ape will be decent, not anything crazy powerful. The one thing I will say, again, going back to the condition, because it's HP restricted, it's not something you can choose to use at the most opportune time. But, you know, you're going into some of these difficult events. If you take a big super on the turn before and then you go into turn 4, he's going to transform into the giant ape. You play out the attacks from the Azaru, and then when you transform back, as long as the enemy super attacks you during that time, then they're now not going to be able to super you. So even though you started the turn under 50% HP, you know you don't have to worry about a super attack. However, the one thing I will say, actually, that does stand out that could be a little bit dangerous for some of these harder events is if you're triggering the giant ape transformation, once you go back to normal and Vegeta's back on the rotation, remember he will not have guard unless you're on exactly 50% HP, because the giant ape transformation is 50% or less, and then guard is 50% or more. So if you're at like 49, you know, even 49.9% HP, you're going to get the giant ape transformation, and then when he de-transforms, he's not going to have guard. So that's something you have to be careful of. But if you're staying above that HP threshold, I think he actually will be quite useful. I'll be doing a showcase. I mean, his EZA and the Extreme Z area actually drops on Christmas Day, technically. So, I mean, I'll probably get his EZA done, but I am away for Christmas. I am taking some stuff with me, so, you know, I might get an opportunity to record a showcase for him while I'm away, but I wouldn't expect it, like, straight away or anything like that. We'll have to see how we get on, but I would like to check him out. I've heard good things about him. In terms of his hidden potential, a lot of these free-to-play units, especially when they're not supports, they're not going to be doing crazy damage, but I feel like his defense capabilities could be relatively good, especially if you are getting that additional super. So I think additional is very good. He's obviously not going to crit much unless you're facing a Shadow Dragon Saga enemy. But, you know, the giant ape form is going to be able to get the benefit of those additionals and crits as well. I think, honestly, if you were going to throw him on a giant ape power team, you're probably going to be using him in slot 3, like he's not going to be a main rotation character, but he does have some decent links, right? Like obviously he has Saiyan Raw, so very, very good link for any Super Saiyan 4 characters that he's being run with. He has Prodigies, he has GT, Saiyan Warrior Race. He is a Shattering the Limit unit though, unfortunately, because he is a free-to-play character. But, you know, he could be quite useful. So I would think I would probably lean into additional and then dodge. Probably not really give him much, if any, crit. I usually give my units at least a little bit something, right? So I'd give him like the level 3 crit, just so he actually has a chance to crit. But I think I'd put the rest into additional and dodge. So let me know what you guys think of the Great Ape Vegeta. If you are on JP and you have actually used him, let us know your thoughts on him down below, whether he is actually decent for some of this content. I think it's going to be interesting to check him out and try him out on the teams with some of these Super Saiyan 4s and other GT characters. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.